All right. I think I am finally live. I am. Hallelujah. All right. Good day to you all. Good day to my state of Maine. Good day to my nation of America, the United States. Good day to all of you on planet Earth. I am Dana the Angry Citizen coming to you today live on August 1st, Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And I am joined today by a very special guest. I'm thrilled to have him here with me. And he is going to talk about election integrity and voter registrations and present you with some very compelling facts and data. And you may use this information to draw whatever conclusions you feel are appropriate. He's been to Maine several times to speak to local audiences. I met him down in Ellsworth at Johnny Linehan's Constitution Hall, where he did a presentation, very compelling presentation. And I said to him at that time, you know, everyone in Maine needs to hear what you have to say. This is absolutely critical because this man is a methodical scientist who is presenting carefully amassed data so that we, the people of Maine and of the United States, can assess whether we feel there was, in fact, voter fraud in our past elections. I do believe that there was, and I do believe that the evidence shows us that. But you're going to make up your own mind when I bring him on. He will tell you what he has found, and you can make up your own mind about how you feel about it. So this man is a world-renowned physicist with 60 peer-reviewed scientific publications in the world's leading scientific journals. His PhD is in surface-electroanalytical chemistry, which combines chemistry, physics, electronics, and advanced computing and mathematics for the manipulation and investigation of molecules on surfaces. Since December of 2020, he's been working diligently to establish election reform with grassroots teams in over 40 states, earning the title of the Johnny Appleseed of election integrity. He's met with secretaries of state, attorneys general, legislators, hundreds of local election officials. He has testified formally in several legal and legislative proceedings. He was featured in 2 of Mike Lindell's 2021 documentaries, Scientific Proof and Absolute Interference, because he discovered several of the algorithms being employed to manipulate our elections. He's been decried and ridiculed by the corrupt mainstream media, which is right away very telling. As soon as the mainstream media starts throwing mud at you, you know you're over the target, as they say, when you're getting the most flack. And the things they say are very dishonest, disingenuous. I found a little hit piece that was written on CNN. And after the introduction I just gave you all, which is entirely accurate, their summation of his background is entirely an Ohio math teacher. That's what they boiled him down to. He's an Ohio math teacher. So you know when you are hearing someone who's decrying someone without just cause, they're probably telling you the truth. But again, you can make up your own minds on that when I bring him in. He is coming back to Maine. He's going to talk a little bit about that very soon. I'm looking forward to that. And those of you, if you're watching and you have questions you'd like to ask, please feel free to post them. We'll do our best to answer them. And without further ado, I bring in my guest. His name is Dr. Douglas G. Frank. So, Dr. Frank, Doug, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you too. You look good and angry today.
Thank you.
I appreciated your introduction because you said people need to follow the data, follow the evidence where it leads. Use your noggin. Don't have to believe me. Everything I say, you can check out and make sure whether it's real or not. I'm so glad I'm coming to Maine. I'm going to be in Maine September 19th to 24th. On that Saturday, the 20th, I'm going to be at Litchfield. It's an all-day thing, a big deal, something about common sense or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it is. I don't run my own schedule, but I'm so delighted to come to Maine. The reason I've been coming to Maine multiple times is because Maine is an important state in terms of election integrity for a couple of reasons. And I've been focusing where I think I have the most chance of making the most progress the soonest. And I think Maine is one of those places. And so I want to explain to you why I think that and et cetera. And just as a kind of a starting description, when I talk to people around the country, I've been in, 48 states actually I've been in now. There are you and Oregon are very similar. I describe you guys around the country as similar. And I know it might sound funny, but you're both red states with a few blue dots. And that's most of Maine is super conservative. In fact, you have one of the best militias in the country. I'm very impressed. Whenever I travel around the country, I always ask about the local militias. You guys have a statewide, organized, beautiful militia, which of course your state government doesn't like, which is why you have a big issue coming up on your election coming up here to do a Second Amendment, because your state doesn't want you to have power. I mean, the whole reason we have the Second Amendment, people think, oh, the Second Amendment is to, so you can defend yourself, from robbers and things like that. The reason the Second Amendment was put in the Constitution is to protect us against the government. And so the government is, trying to infringe upon that. So you guys have a big election coming up in November. And of course, I don't have much faith in that. Your elections are very corrupt in your state. But anyway, you're like Oregon in the sense that you're a red state with a few blue dots. Oregon is the same. They got 30 out of their 36 counties that are very red, 3 purple counties and 3 blue ones. And so you're similar in that respect, which is why I'm spending a lot of time in Oregon as well. Keep your ears to the tracks. A lot of big news is about to happen in Oregon. And I would like to have some big news happen in Maine. You guys are only just waking up, though, to your potential. As I travel your state, I've been teaching people 7 steps, how to take back your elections. And you guys have an amazing opportunity that most states don't have. You have an amazing opportunity that most states don't have. And let me just kind of explain what that is. And I'll tell you what, as an example, I'll explain it in Wisconsin first, and then I'll come to Maine. So in Wisconsin, they've got a state law. It's right in their state law that if you're in a county with under 7,500 people, you don't have to use the state electronic system. You can run your own elections locally. So, of course, I've spent a lot of time in the northern counties up there where there are all these tiny little counties, 5,000 or less, convincing those counties to get off of the state central control. The core problem in our country is that our elections are centrally controlled in each state. They aren't controlled out in the counties and towns anymore. They're all centrally controlled. So what'll happen, the first thing that happens, I show up in these small towns like in Wisconsin, and I show them the data for their own county, and they're appalled. How can that be, Dr. Frank? We love our clerk. We love our local officials. We're a red county. Everything's good here. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Your election is not controlled by you. It's controlled centrally by the state. You have to take back local control. And so I teach them how to do that. That's what the 7 steps are all about. And in the 2024 election, there were 6 counties that took back local control. Really, Dr. Frank, how did they do that? Well, what we did is we got 6 counties to just not use any electronic machines. But there's an interesting twist to that. So what happened is one of the 6 counties, the guy was feeling his oats. And he made it public. We're not using any electronics in my election. I'm running it locally all myself. Well, the state heard him, and the Wisconsin Election Commission, they call it the WEC, prosecuted that county and prosecuted that guy, and they won in court and said, you have to use election machines because of handicapped people. Well, the other 5 counties heard that, and so they all had election machines as well. They just never plugged them in. So, in other words, you can use, you didn't need to use the machines. They're small counties anyway. Now, I just gave that as an introductory story to come back to Maine now. In Maine, did you know that you get to decide town by town how you vote? You don't even have to have a limit of population like in Wisconsin. You get to decide, your selectmen in your towns can decide how to run your elections. You don't even need an election. Beautiful example of that. You mentioned John Linehan's place. Well, down in Sullivan, where John and Marlene are daily, amazing. They're amazing patriots there. I love those folks. He's a famous lobsterman there. Makes sense in Maine. But she went to her local selectmen and said, we don't want to use these machines in Sullivan anymore. This was a couple years ago. And they agreed. Okay, we'll get rid of them. Well, your Secretary of State, Shenna Bellows, came driving down to Sullivan in 4 hours and convinced your locals to go ahead and keep the machines. And the way she did that is she said, as your county people were saying, or I'm sorry, her town people were saying, we don't want to use this stuff. It's expensive. Nobody trusts it. She says, oh, no, don't worry. It's all trustworthy, and the state will pay for it for you. We'll pay for everything, so you don't have to worry about the cost. So they capitulated. They caved. to her. But the point
where
is,
where do they think this money comes from? This is our damn money.
exactly. And if you ask Marlene about it, by the way, she'll tell you that the state money ran out on it 6 months later, and you're now paying for it locally anyway. So anyway, the point is when I was there last time, someone told me, and I haven't verified this myself, but it sounds right. About a third of the towns in Maine are not using any electronic tabulators. You're doing hand counting anyway. You're these tiny, small towns, small red towns. You don't need that stuff anyway. So this is a tremendous opportunity. All we have to do is convince your local selectmen in your towns to just disconnect from the state and run your own elections. There's no legal reason why you can't, and you should. But what we're up against, Dana, is these people in each of these counties, they think it's okay. Oh, we're a small red county. We trust our officials. Everything's good here. All that shows is that they don't understand what the problem is. The problem is you're not in local control. The state's in control. And so you might think everything's good because you like your local people and you like your local officials, but it's not coming out the way you want. One example I learned on my last trip there, I was speaking, I don't remember which town or county it was in right now off the top of my head, but I was speaking there, and afterwards a congressional candidate came up to me, and he said, "Hey, Dr. Frank, we got a huge problem here." What's that? Well, I was representing 3 districts for Congress, to the National Congress, and I won my election on election night. It was obvious that I won. I won by a clear margin. Well, the next day, Shena Bellows called me and told me, "Nope, you didn't win. I've counted the Uokava votes, and they swung the election back to your opponent." And he's like, "What? That was too big of a margin. That couldn't be. I want to see the list of all those Uokava voters, the people who voted in the election to overturn it." And she refused to give it to him. She says, "No, I'm going to protect the privacy of those." Under constitutional law, and under state law, he has the right to see every person who voted in his election. He has the right to challenge every elector. Well, guess what? She's just telling him, pound sand. Sorry, we're not going to show you that. And so it's very reminiscent of what Stalin said. Stalin said it's enough that the people have an election. It doesn't matter who casts the votes. What matters is who counts the votes. And I want you to realize it doesn't matter. Any election in your state can be overturned by Shena Bellows on a whim, and she doesn't have to show you diddly. Nothing's transparent about it. She's basically the king of your elections, and she can tyrannically decide any outcome. The only way you're going to be able to overcome that is not through legislation. Fat chance getting your legislature to do it. The only way you're going to be able to overcome that is to take back local control, where you control every ballot that you count in your elections. And so that's why I'm coming up to Maine. I'm teaching you guys how to take back local control, and so that you can have integrity in your elections again. You look like you wanted to ask me a question.
Good. Well, no, I just want to say that we are very keenly aware of the cancer that Shena Bellows is in this state, and our governor and a whole bunch of the people in our legislature. We are so sick of their shenanigans. If I told you all the stuff they did, none of it would probably surprise you because you're aware of these issues.
Yep.
But you would still say, even that, I mean, like, for example, they would submit a blank bill so that it had a number and a standing in the list of bills that they're talking about, but it didn't say anything. See,
they just got in the queue.
And then they would just fill in the words and bring it to the floor and vote on it because they have the majority. See,
yes,
secret meetings. They shut down Representative Laurel Libby. You must have heard about this. It was all over the news. She posted a Facebook post, and all she did in the Facebook post was she posted a picture of a so-called trans child who had one day said he was a boy, and he one day said, "I'm not a boy, I'm a girl." And they said, "Oh, well, then go ahead and compete against the girls in girls sports," which of course he dominated the girls in girls sports, and claiming that he was a girl, which he's not. And we don't hate trans people. We're not transphobic. We just don't think a boy should be able to say, "I'm a girl," and jump in and start doing track meets against girls. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
So she posted a Facebook post, and it wasn't derogatory. She didn't call for hate or violence. She just pointed out
Yeah.
a very inconvenient fact that this is a boy who says he's a girl, and that's an issue, and go ahead, deal with that any way you want, but you don't get to say, now I'm going to compete against you in a 100-meter dash. And so they censured her for that, these morons. And her punishment for doing this terrible thing, which wasn't a terrible thing at all, but they claimed it was she was not allowed to speak in the House. Literally not allowed to do her job that she was duly elected by we the people to do. They silenced the voices of her constituents just by saying, you've been bad, and we're going to punish you. And they're so smugly self-righteous, and just it makes me so angry. Don't even get me started. So yeah, we're aware. About Shenna Bellows.
Yep.
The governor's in hot water about a bunch of different things. I'm not going to go there because I don't want to take up more time with that stuff. Get back to the point that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So, yeah, preach on.
Yeah, I love that you're angry about it, because the problem is there are not enough of you in the state of Maine angry about it. That is job one, if you ask me, is getting the word out so that everybody will get angry. And then that's the only way to take power back away from your tyrannical legislature.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
until the people are awake. And if you're waiting for legislation to fix it, fat chance. If you're waiting for Shenna Bellows to fix it, fat chance. It has to be town by town by town. And that's why I've been coming up there so much and working town by town by town. And every time I show up and talk to the local towns, they get all excited because they realize they actually have hope. Nobody really has hope expecting the legislature to fix things, but
they won't.
But if you can fix it locally, which you can,
we can.
Then that's a big deal, and then we can get momentum going. And then once you have the momentum going, then you can take back control from the state. That's really the only way we have, because right now you're being run by a tyrannical government. So
dictator, yeah, absolutely. So now, if I may, I want to talk about a little bit about when you came here, you were telling us very specific things about our elections, about the numbers, and I know you didn't have that handy when we jumped on today. But
I've got it ready in the presentation. Do you see there?
Oh, do you? Okay, because that is really important, and I was hoping to be able to put that right out there for everyone to see.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and show the data. I'll be happy to show you.
Okay, all right. So let's. Oh, sorry.
You should see it down there in the gallery.
Remove. Yeah, it's there. Hang on, I'm going to.
Yeah, there you got it.
There you go. Okay.
So let me just talk about this graph. It's a nice way to understand what's going on. So this graph is from 1980 to 2024, right up to present, and the blue curve on the top. Let me get my pointer going so I can guide your eye a little bit here. Here we go. Let me give a second on that. Here we go. So this blue curve along the top, this is the number of people in your state, for the whole state, that are voting age and older. So it's not necessarily citizens, but voting age and older, this blue line on the top. And you can see it looks like you're approaching 1.2 million people in the state that are voting age. Now, the black curve underneath is every 2 years, right from the Secretary of State website, telling you, it's not every 2 years, it's actually, I think 3 times a year they post it there in Maine, telling you how many people are active voters in your voter rolls. And you'll notice that it kind of jumps up and down all over the place. Your population really doesn't jump around like that. It's just that's when they're doing voter roll maintenance and whatnot. But you notice right before the 2016 election that it surged right up to your population. Now, I can tell you from my experience around the country that a clean voter rolls has about 70% of the voting age population in the voting rolls. So you're already dirty at this point. So you're especially dirty at this point. And then the fact, and you notice that after the 2020 election, your state's been cleaning it up. So doesn't that prove in the data itself that your voter rolls were dirty? And they're cleaning it up following some federal laws. Now, the total number of people in your voter rolls is actually much higher. You're at close to 110% of your voting age population in the rolls. I'm just showing here the active registered voters so you can see that it's preposterous. Now, the red curve down here shows how many people voted every 2 years in the general election. So you've got federal, midterm. You notice that when the federal elections have higher turnouts. So that's just been kind of steadily climbing with the population, but you notice your rolls are all over the map. Now, why is that important? Well, because the voter rolls decide who gets to cast a ballot. And a lot of your ballots are being cast remotely, not in person. And so all you have to do to cheat the election is just have a bunch of extra people in the rolls that don't belong there. And I think you got about 20% don't belong there at least. And all you have to do is look those people up and turn in a ballot for them. It's not them voting, it's somebody else. So just for grins, I just wanted to show you that I've done some of the counties. Here's Waldo County, for example. You notice that Waldo County's got more people in the voter rolls for the 2020 election than they even had people. Okay, so you had more active voters. Or Sagadahoc, or Penobscot. Now, Penobscot, not as much. But you notice that they all have the same kind of shape to them. The number of people in the voter rolls have these periodic jumps that track each other. Well, why is that? That, like there's a jump here and a jump here, and there was a jump here, and it's the same in every county. In other words, it's not the county doing it. It's not the county official doing it. It's being done centrally at the state level. So what I do is I go into counties and I show them that their local people are not the ones doing this. It's being done at the state level. So as long as you're letting somebody else control your rolls, you're in trouble. And I just wanted to tell you a story related to this. You guys may have seen it in the Maine Wire. So in California, I don't want to use names, but there was a central mountain county in California that there was a Medicare, Medicaid contractor there. And he heard one of our presentations, and he heard that the claim was that there were people in the voter rolls who were not citizens in the voter rolls who were voting. Well, Medicare and Medicaid contractors, counties hire them because counties usually can't run that themselves. It's complicated. So they contract it out to business people, contractors. Well, this guy, he has access to the Medicare, Medicaid database. So in the Medicare, Medicaid database, it tells you whether you're a citizen or not. So he cross-referenced the voter rolls with that, and he noticed that there were lots of non-citizens voting in his county. They weren't just in the rolls, they were voting. So he brought it to the attention of the DA. They convened a grand jury. The grand jury decided the facts weren't in question, but the grand jury decided that they dismissed it because they had nobody they could prosecute. And the reason they had nobody they could prosecute is because it's not the non-citizen that's voting. If you're an illegal alien in Central California, you're not going to vote in the election. The last thing you want to do is draw attention to yourself. What's happened is their names are being used by people who are harvesting those ballots using those names. So anyway, so they convened a grand jury. The jury said, we don't know who to prosecute because we don't know who did the harvesting. So they dismissed the case. So a group of people there were very upset about this. And one of them gave himself a pseudonym and published it on social media all over the country, showing how many non-citizens were voting in his election. Well, somebody in Maine with a similar situation picked up on that and ran the same kind of analysis in one of your towns there. And lo and behold, you have the same problem in Maine. You have non-citizens voting in your towns there. And that was written up in the Maine Wire. I have that article. I could show you that article. So you have this legitimate problem there. Now, if you were running your own elections locally, you wouldn't allow that to happen. Because you would know, hey, wait a minute, who's that guy sending the polls? You wouldn't allow him to vote. It's the fact that it's being run remotely that allows this to happen. So I've just given you two examples of how you not having local control is you've lost your elections. You can't have free and fair elections when somebody else can manipulate them like that. So anyway, I just wanted you to see that this is a legitimate problem that you have. Judicial Watch filed an amicus brief against you guys in 2023 saying, hey, you got huge problems in your voter rolls and you are not allowing your citizens to audit, which your citizens have the right to do. And and they won the amicus brief as well, but still Shenabellas will not share. So they're out of compliance. But the problem you have in Maine is your courts are corrupt, your legislature is corrupt. So it doesn't matter whether you follow the law or not. It doesn't matter whether Shenabellas follows the law or not. They're just going to not comply with that anyway. So that's why the recent Department of Justice investigation into you guys is interesting. That they're coming down on you, and they're going to expose a lot of this. I think timing is beautiful because I know Shenna wants to run for governor. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, well, let's expose how what a poor job she's done. All you need is a tyrant like that. If she's been a tyrant like this with your elections, imagine her as your governor. Anyway, so I just want you to realize this is real stuff.
So that information that you just presented us with is, in my opinion, very compelling. And when people attempt to refute what you say, I find it's laughable. And as an example, again, there was a CNN article, I'm sure you either heard about it or you may even have read it, which it was, in my opinion, hilarious. And I want to read a little bit of this, and I'm going to tell you, this is how you discern truth from fiction, America. Okay, the truth bears scrutiny. When you ask a question, if the person doesn't have an answer or avoids answering the question or uses any form of intellectual dishonesty, like a straw man fallacy, most commonly ad hominem attack is always their first line of defense. Oh, that Dr. Frank guy is a kook. He's a nut. In this case, it's so obvious it's painful. This is what CNN has to say here. So Douglas Frank, an Ohio math teacher. Remember, again, the introduction I read, which is all verifiably correct. The PhD, everything, but they've boiled it down to he's an Ohio math teacher. Affixed his Texas flag print bow tie, as if that is somehow relevant to anything, led a booming rendition of the national anthem, and then walked a crowd through an absurd mathematical equation that he claimed proves the 2020 election was stolen. Now, importantly here, they don't actually quote the specific equation. They don't say, here's the equation. Dr. Frank claims that 2 + 1 = 7. Well, it doesn't. Here's why. Case closed. Nothing. Just, is bogus equation. We don't actually care about it. And then quotes him, just about every county in the country was hacked, Frank told the dozens of Texans huddled in a ballroom at a local. How are they huddled? What were you huddling? Was it cold?
There were more than 100 people there. It was a large ballroom.
Why were you huddling? I don't understand. Are we huddled now? Like, this is so dishonest. How do people read this and take it seriously? Then they go on. Oh, when he finished speaking more than 90 minutes later, I guess they're trying to tell us that was a long time and that's a bad thing. They gave him a standing ovation. Well, what a bunch of stupid suckers they must be, right? This is how the big lie the big lie. And again, what lie? Show me the lie. Show me the proof. You have nothing. So I'm telling you, folks, this drives me crazy. And then people quote this stuff. And when I start quoting facts, they get mad and they start acting like hysterical little children. And it's ridiculous. So getting back to your point earlier, because I'm all about solutions.
Yes.
Doug, I'm telling you, I have heard so many complaints and people are always complaining. And I've been posting in social media. I've been making these videos. I've been trying to work with people, work with allies. And it's a very, very frustrating process because everyone loves to complain, but no one wants to do anything. And the moment I say to them, they go, well, someone should do something, or I wish there was something I could blah, blah, blah. And I go, oh, well, I'm glad to hear you say that. Here you go. And I tell them the action steps we need to take.
Yes.
And 9 out of 10 of them immediately say, that won't work. It doesn't matter.
Right.
The stupidest thing they say is they say, well, we need to go all 1776. Oh, so you're going to pick up a rifle and go somewhere? Where are you going? What do you hope to accomplish? What enemy are you going to kill? And is the rest of the nation then going to go, oh, okay, well, now we're following you? Because don't be stupid. The tools are there for us.
Yes.
All we have to do is unite, and everyone has to do something.
Yes.
And it involves, as I've been saying for decades and always get shot down, talking to these people, write a letter, an actual physical letter, and say, my name is, and I live in, and I am a tax-paying constitutional American, and I am writing to you about this issue, and this is how I feel about it. And I expect you to respond to me, and I expect you to do the right thing, like Shenabellows, okay? That information that you are hoarding, that you claim you're
Yes.
a queen now, and
Yeah.
you get to decide what goes and what doesn't. No, you work for us.
Preach.
So we're not your servants. You are our servant, and
Yes.
we're your employers. And you don't go to your boss and say, I'm not going to tell you this thing about your business because I've determined that you don't deserve to have it or can't have it. No. And all these corrupt courts can be fixed, but we have to hold them accountable. As soon as a judge renders a verdict that is unconstitutional or flagrantly ignores evidence presented, there needs to be a large public outcry and a move to impeach that person.
Yes.
And have them, and impeachment can be followed by jail time, and should be. And imagine how good it would be to see one or two of them get held accountable and watch the others fall into line.
That's going to happen. That's going to have to happen locally, though. You're not going to be able to, because that's where you have power. Can you put my screen back up? I accidentally took it down a minute ago. I wanted to show you one more thing. That it was just recently ruled that a year ago that she had to release it, and if people want to know, question my story about whether there were Maine people that voted who were non-citizens. It's right there in the Maine Wire, so you can check me out. All right, I'll come back out of there now. I just forgot to show that before.
No worries.
And
I'm going to put that in the comments here. So, folks, if you want to go check this article out for yourself, there's the link.
Yes.
And
now look, on the math teacher thing, I'm glad you brought that up. So, as it turns out, I am a math teacher, part-time. I teach at a special school for gifted children, high IQ kids. I mean, we're talking screaming high IQ kids. The median IQ is 145. And a couple years ago, I taught a calculus class with 5 people in it, and 4 of the kids had IQs in the 180s. So that tells you the math. I'm teaching like graduate level math to these super brilliant kids. So it's not false that I'm a math teacher, but you're right. It's disingenuous. It's dishonest for them because they're trying to create a perception. That I'm diminishing.
They're diminishing you. They're minimizing your credibility without actually saying anything that is truly worthy of diminishing your credibility.
Now, in terms of the 2020 election, the equation that they were talking about, if you want to learn about that, basically what I've done is I figured out the algorithm that they were using to stuff ballots. And when you have central control, it's all controlled by software. You have to have an algorithm to decide how many ballots to stuff where. And I figured out that algorithm. How do I know I figured it out? Because I can predict it in every county in America. Well, except for 3, which I can tell you that story if you want. But all I have to do is go into one state and study one county in that state. And I can tell you in every other county in that state how many 18-year-olds, how many 19-year-olds, how many 20. I can tell you how many of every age vote in every other county in that state. And the parameters in the equation for that state don't work in the next state over. It's how I proved in the early days that the states are being centrally controlled locally. And I guess I will just tell you that story. I was flying into Montana in 2022. It was a big election integrity day. There were 3 big speakers. I was there. Seth Keshel was there. Professor Clements. It was a whole day of election integrity. And I was flying in the night before. I was running behind on my preparation, and I was calculating every county in the state of Montana and showing that I could predict every county, just like I always was predicting in all the other states. And for some reason, out of the 56 counties, I couldn't predict 3 of them. And I was like, I can't predict 3 of these counties. I figured something's wrong with my math because I'd never not been able to do it. And I'm struggling. Finally, I just gave up and went to bed. Next day during my presentation, I showed that I could predict all the counties. And I said to the crowd, I apologize. I don't know What's wrong with my math? I can't figure out why I can't predict these 3 counties. When I do figure it out, I'll put it up on social media so you can all have the graphs that show what's going on. This big cowboy walks up to the microphone in the center. There's like 500 people in the audience. He comes up and he says, "Nope, Dr. Frank, you see that county right there? That county, they ain't got no internet." And so the reason I couldn't predict those 3 counties is because they're not connected. They're not centrally controlled. But all the other counties that are centrally controlled and connected, I could predict those. So that was like a beautiful control example of what I was doing. So the question is CNN should have said, Dr. Frank can't predict it, and here's the evidence that he can't predict it. They can't say that because I can predict it. And so the fact that I can, and that it works in every county in the state, whether it's a big county, a small county, a green county, a brown county, Chinese, black, I don't care. I can predict every single county, big, small, rural, urban, didn't matter. And they all voted in exactly the same relative proportions. That's very suspicious. And all you do is take one step across the state line, and those people somehow vote in different proportions than the one on this side of the state line. In the both rural counties right next to our neighbors, this is something wrong with this. So that's what I was proving in the early days. And the problem with that kind of evidence is it's great evidence. It proves my point that they're centrally controlled. But the problem is it doesn't empower the citizens. What I've learned is you can complain. It's sort of like, let's say I come to your town and I say, wow, your death rate went up 1%. Everybody's going to go, oh no, we got to do something about it. And your selectmen will say, let's hire more police or whatever. Let's get more detectives, whatever. But if I walk into town and start piling up bodies in the middle of your town council room, things are going to happen. There's a difference between statistics and having bodies. And what I've learned in the election integrity movement is I can give you all the evidence. I can show you graph after graph. I can show you statistics after statistics to show that you have a disaster on your hands. But if you can't prove the local harm, the people aren't motivated. So I come into the towns, I give them a copy of their own rolls, and I show them how to find fraud in their own town. Then when they find fraud in their own town, everybody's shocked. How could that possibly be? We love our leaders. We love our clerk. This doesn't make sense. And I can say, aha, the reason this is because you're not in control of your election. Somebody else is. You need to take back local control. Here's how. So that's what I've learned. I'm ineffective unless I can get the local people motivated by having them find fraud in their own election. Think about it. Every fraudulent ballot is nullifying one of the real ballots of a real citizen. And so, how do you like your ballots being canceled out? You don't like it. So it motivates people. So that's kind of where that's come. But that CNN story was pretty fun. They in that CNN story, they also brought in a guy named Justin Grimmer from Stanford University, who was, every time I testify anywhere around the country, that's who they trot out to testify.
He shows up.
He's the opposite voice. And so what happened, I was up in Coos County, Oregon. Remember I told you guys are like Oregon. I was up in Coos County, Oregon, and the county officials there held a 3.5-hour public workshop. The county supervisors did. And they invited me in, and they invited in Justin Grimmer, and we had a public debate. It was awesome. I wiped the floor with this guy. He kept saying, you can't predict this stuff, Dr. Frank. So I would just show a graph. Here's my prediction. Here's my prediction. Here's my prediction. And then he was saying, oh, but that's not fair. You can't do it that way because that violates this statistical rule or that statistical rule. I'm like, I don't care what statistical rules. I can predict it. And that proves that we got a problem. And then it was beautiful. At one moment, the head supervisor of the county interrupted, and he says, Mr. Grimmer or Dr. Grimmer, I was skeptical of this at first as well. So a couple of years ago, I asked Dr. Frank to give me a list of addresses that I think are suspicious. And he gave me 20 addresses. My wife and I went out on a Sunday afternoon, and the first 7 out of 7 addresses we knocked on had a fraudulent voter at it, just like he predicted. So actually, I think Dr. Frank can predict elections. And all that is streamed online on YouTube, and you can't take it down because it's public hearings. Oh, man. So, Justin Grimmer really stuck his neck out where he shouldn't have. But nevertheless, he's the token opposition to Dr. Frank.
And I immediately, as a discerning man, as soon as I read this, it
Yes.
reeks of BS, because basically the people that attempt to refute you, that have no available evidence,
Yes.
always resort to the same things. It's the intellectual equivalent of going, nuh-uh. It really is. That's all the nuh-uh is
Yes,
not.
sir. Yes, sir.
No
Yes,
way,
sir.
man. You're one of those conspiracy people. So here's what it says. This is because you were talking about this guy in this article. Um, the title of this section of the article is Debunking Frank's Fraud Claims. And I assure you that I've read this entire thing down to the next component of it, which is spreading the big lie nationwide. Nowhere in here does it actually refute any of his claims. And this man is, in fact, mentioned here. If we go down to where it says, and it starts right off with, it doesn't introduce who this Grimmer person is. It's talking about you. He's absurdly claimed discoveries could land track back in the Oval Office. It quotes you. I'd like the country to stand up and say, wow, this thing was ripped off. Let's do a do-over, or let's put Trump back in office, Frank said in an August interview on the Truth and Liberty livecast. Then the next paragraph starts out, Grimmer, the Stanford University professor, said Frank has a way of wooing crowds with his professorial demeanor, but that ultimately his conclusions are meaningless. In other words, nuh-uh is not.
And
You lie.
somehow I'm able to woo crowds because I show them actual data.
No, it's because we're all stupid sheep, and when you come to Maine, we're so stupid that we believe every lie you tell us, and we will believe anything because we're just dumb hicks here in Maine. That's what CNN is saying. We are too stupid to discern fact from lie, and you are a master of lies. And with your professorial demeanor and your bow tie, but those equations.
I didn't know the interview was going to go this way, but I'm really glad it did, because it brings up another very important piece of news that just happened, and it's related to the way the media covers things. So, for example, it was the most secure election in history in 2020, right? That was like the media mantra. But it's interesting because 2 months ago, I don't know if you noticed, Kash Patel released the fact that the FBI were in possession of 1 million fake ballots and 1 million fake driver's licenses that had been produced in China. And that was seized in October, right before the election in 2020. And that's just one batch. There's others around the country. So that sort of thing has been coming out steadily. But here's what I wanted to get to, though. So remember, Mike held the Cyber Symposium in 2021. Yes. I was the MC for that. I was very connected and involved in that. Well, what happened was Mike wanted to increase. He's a marketer, right? Mr. Lindell is a marketer. He wanted to increase interest in this Cyber Symposium. So he invited cyber experts from all around the world to come to the symposium. And to entice them, he said, if you can prove my data are wrong, then I'll give you $5 million. So it was called the $5 million Prove Mike Wrong Challenge.
Yep, I remember that.
And so as it turns out, about 56, I remember because I was at the conference, about 56 cyber experts came from around the world. And we gave them some data. And in order for them to evaluate the data, they had to decrypt it. Because it was encrypted when we gave it to them because of the nature of the data that we had. And as it turns out, 3 of the 56 submitted claims. They said, we think that, these data are not real. They're not related to the 2020 election, blah, blah, blah. Well, what was really going on is I helped to write the rules for the contest, okay, the $5 million challenge. And we said right in the first paragraph, in order to win the $5 million challenge, you have to prove by the Thursday evening deadline, because this was a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday conference. You had to prove by the Thursday evening deadline that the official data that we are giving you is not related to the 2020 election. We didn't say whether it was real or not. It says you had to prove that it was not related to unequivocally prove it's not related to the 2020 election. Well, there were 3 submissions. 3 challenges, and I served on the committee that analyzed the submissions, and we rejected all 3 of them. None of them were even close. Well, about 6 months later, this guy Zeidman challenged that. Now he challenged it. Now in the rules, the fine print, there's always the contests and the fine print. In the fine print, it said at the bottom, if you don't agree with the committee's ruling on it, you can appeal it, and it will go to binding arbitration. That's how it was going to be settled. It's like the 20th paragraph in the 2 pages of rules. So it went to binding arbitration because he challenged, and I testified for 4 days in that case as well, in the binding arbitration. And I had explained to the judges how the data was acquired, how what it looked like, how it had to be decrypted, and we decrypted it right in front of the judges. We brought in a guy, he decrypted it, we showed him. It's full of 2020 data. It's obvious. I think it's an open and shut case, but nevertheless, the judges ruled in favor of Zeidman. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is because this made huge news, national news, and it was spun over all the country. Mike's data is debunked.
Yep.
Right? Mike's data is debunked. Mike's data, no, it just means that this award was given to this guy. Well, I told Mike afterwards, I said, I don't know, and I told his attorney, Kurt Olson, I don't understand. This is open and shut case. The guy did not win the challenge. He had to prove this was unrelated to the 2020 election, and we decrypted the data right in front of the judges, and they could see it was 2020 election data. So I don't understand. Well, Mike appealed it, and just 2 weeks ago, in the federal court, 3 out of 3 of the federal judges overturned the binding arbitration. And I remember telling Kurt Olson, I said, I don't understand. We got to appeal this. And Kurt said, yeah. But binding arbitration is binding arbitration. They never overrule binding arbitration. It's binding.
Wow.
Well, it's the first time in 40 years.
That's amazing.
This is huge because every court case you hear on election integrity, oh no, that's all been debunked. It's all been debunked. No, that's overturned now. That's really big news. So that's a really important thing. Now we'll see whether the media discusses that or not.
Well, the so-called mainstream media, which I monitor them very closely, and their lies are appalling and egregious and just so very flagrant and in your face gaslighting. Constantly the so-called news is a circus of fear-mongering propaganda. It's always the headlines are always growing fears, growing concerns, terror, deadly fire, deadly tornadoes, deadly hurricanes,
tsunamis,
yes, and shark attacks. Now, I understand that if you get bitten by a shark, that's a really, really big deal for you. It really is. And for everyone around you that has to witness it, for the EMTs that come, put the tourniquet on you, all that stuff, okay? Yeah. But if you look at the number of times sharks attack people in this country, as opposed to the number of times people die because of medical error, which is the 3rd leading cause of death.
Wow.
A woman, there was a story in our local news here recently about a woman who went to get surgery, and I cannot remember the specific surgery, but instead of doing what they were supposed to do, they took out her bladder. They literally took out this woman's bladder.
That's irreversible, man.
Yeah. So now she's, they had to do.
She carries a bag now.
Reconstructive surgery to try to build her a new bladder, and she's having UTIs and infections, and of course that and that's not unusual. That the medical industry is a joke, but they're telling you that this little girl in Florida had her hand bitten by a shark, which again for her is horrible, and for her family, I agree it's horrible.
Yeah.
But what about these the millions of people that are getting murdered in hospitals? Isn't that a bigger story? They'll talk about Hollywood, they talk about shopping, Amazon Black Friday deals is all over the place. But, here we are with election fraud and, massive illegal operations. Here in Maine, we have a huge presence of Chinese nationals growing marijuana illegally in various locations in Maine, in rural Maine. And we're seeing this coming out. They're getting arrested and there's supposedly ties to our governor, Janet Mills, which I can't comment on. I haven't tracked it down, but not a shock to me. If anyone that knows her in her history can't be shocked that might be true. There's a lot of talk about her cocaine use, which and I've heard these rumors a lot, and rumors are just rumors until maybe they aren't. You hear it enough, you start maybe thinking it might have some truth to it. But I tell my fellow Mainers here in Maine, I don't care if she did or does. I care that she's committing crimes. She's doing things that are unconstitutional. She's perjuring her oath. She's a
Yes.
traitor. She should be arrested and tried with treason. That's as simple as I can make it. And if she does
Yeah.
coke, well, that's on her. I don't care. I really don't care. It's neither here nor there to me. Anyway, I digress. Those of you watching, if you have not seen the documentary 10,000 Mules, you really should. Okay.
2,000 mules.
Oh, 2,000. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
So, in essence, there are hundreds of videos of people showing up at voting
Yes.
ballot boxes,
Yes.
unloading hundreds of votes and feeding them in at all hours of the morning. And of course,
Yes.
we're told this was the most secure election in history.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile those two things? Those do not jive. You can't have someone showing up with a box of votes, ballots. We have no idea where they came from,
Right.
who they are, and feeding them in to this machine. And suddenly the count for Joe Biden goes boink. And we're
Yes.
told, at the last minute, a giant. We're told 84 million people supposedly voted for Joe Biden, and we as a
I
nation
don't think so.
accept this.
Yeah.
Unbelievable to me. It's called gaslighting. It's like catching your lover in bed with someone else and having them in bed with someone else look at you and say, "This is not what you think. I'm not really here. I'm not me." The next day you say, "That wasn't me. I don't know what you're talking about. Are you okay? Have you been drinking?" Like that, we're being gaslit. It just pisses me off. So, but getting back to your most important part of, I think, what you're conveying to us is the same thing I've been saying, which is it has to happen at the local level.
Yes.
Take hold of your communities, take hold of your counties, and county by county, we can hold these people accountable, because again, we don't work for them. They work for us. Janet Mills is our employee. We let her get away with the shenanigans. Ryan Fecto, the Speaker of the House, when he did what he did to Laura Libby, we let him get away with it. Okay, I wrote a scathing letter to him, but my letter alone doesn't count for much. I mean, I'm pretty good at it, but I'm still only one man. If everyone in Maine wrote the letter, wow, you would see some heads turning right there, and they'd be backpedaling mighty fast because they would know that their position is in jeopardy, which it should be. He should be impeached. That's a whole different podcast right there.
You put your finger on the problem. Is that there's not enough angry citizens. And I like what Plato said. Plato said the penalty for refusing to become involved in politics is that you end up being governed by your inferiors. And that's the situation we're in. Conservative people, we don't believe in government. We want government to be small and unintrusive and out of here. So we don't get involved in government. The problem is, by us not getting involved in government, it's become swarmed with people who do believe in government and who use it. And those tend to be conservatives. And they tend to be inferior people. Not saying that liberal people are inferior to conservative. I'm just saying that Plato says you end up being governed by your inferiors, and they're not just inferior intellectually, they're inferior morally and ethically. And so I'm not a bit surprised that you've got a governor who's a cocaine user, if that's a rumor. But fine, I wouldn't be a bit surprised. These people are trash around the country. We only have 2 good secretaries of states in the whole country. I've been working closely with secretaries of states all over the country. There's one in Wyoming. His name is Chuck Gray. He's awesome. And then we just elected in the 2024 election. Blew my mind. In Missouri, Denny Hodgkins. He ran on a platform of election integrity. I couldn't believe he won because, but what happens is, the reason I bring the story up is because it goes back to this local control thing. We're in this mindset as citizens that they're going to fix it, that they're going to fix the problem. And so we elected Trump. He's going to fix everything. Wrong. Right. We elected Denny. He's going to fix everything. Wrong. We have to do it at the local level. By doing it at the local level, we actually empower them at the upper levels to take action. If we wait for them to try to impose it down upon us, I keep telling everybody about Trump. What Trump is doing, all these executive orders, I mean, I like a lot of them. I don't like the fact that there are executive orders. I think that's unconstitutional. I don't think that's the way we run our country. But I like I mean, I agree in principle with a lot of his ideology, so I like what he's doing. But I hate it that it's come to this. But
Yes.
the problem is that this is a short-term solution. The next president could just undo
Yes.
all of it. And
Yes.
furthermore, I've already run the numbers, and I have a little tease, and I'll explain it more when I get there. But Trump did not win the 2024 election. People are surprised by when I say that, but he did not win the 2024 election, and I'll explain it.
Wow.
I don't have to keep you waiting. I can explain that in a minute. But he didn't. But if you look at historical data and historical patterns, which I do, I'm a modeler. We're going to lose the midterms for sure, unless God gives us another miracle. Because when the president wins, the other party wins the midterm. That's the historic pattern. It's been the pattern for as long as I can remember. And the numbers are also showing it going that way. So if you're relying on Trump to fix the country, you've only got another year. So, and I liken it to World War II. We've got Trump bombing Berlin. We need to invade Normandy. And we're going to have to invade Normandy either way. We might as well invade while we have air cover, though. Now's the chance to do it. If we're waiting for him to fix it, no. We, the people, need to step up, and we need to carry out what we're doing. We need to, and it's the same way in Missouri. You can't expect Denny to fix their elections. The Secretary of State doesn't write laws. He only makes policies with the laws. The legislature can stop him. How can you stop that? The grassroots has to wake up and engage and empower. That's what has to happen. So in the end, it's right back on us anyway.
Well said. I am friends with a gentleman who I met a few years ago who is a ferocious patriot. His name is Clyde Cleveland, and he wrote a really amazing and powerful, and remind me, Doug, I'll send you one of these piece called Common Sense Revisited. And one of the key components of what he talks about in this is exactly what you are discussing right now, which is called bottom-up government.
Yep.
And he explains how this was developed, how the Romans developed this system. You had a unit of 10 citizens that had one person that would represent them and feelings of a higher nature. And then out of the 10 of these people, you'd have one that would represent you at a higher level. But it all was about local control, local authority. And I've been trying so hard for decades to help Americans know and understand their rights. I call this program lawful jujitsu, because if we all know our rights and we can enforce that, and we can protect each other, and if we see someone being deprived of their rights, we have to speak out, because that person's rights are our rights. If that happens to him, it can happen to you. I did an interview with one of the J6ers, as they're known. His name is Stuart Parks. He's from Tennessee. And this is the summation, and this is with God as my witness. This is an accurate summation of what happened to him on January 6th. He went to Washington. He was with all the people. They were protesting. They were, and from everyone that was there that day, I know a lot of people that were there, and they've described this as a momentous, joyous occasion. It was completely peaceful. No one had a torch or a pitchfork. No one was suggesting that anyone break windows or light police cars on fire, until a specific time when a bunch of people showed up, men all wearing MAGA gear and MAGA hats, and all of a sudden there was agitation going on in the crowd. Well, meanwhile, the Capitol building was open, folks. It wasn't closed. There were no locked doors in the Capitol building. The police opened the Capitol building. People were walking into the Capitol building because it's a
public place
of public ownership. It's our place. And they weren't. No one, again, was committing crimes. Stuart Parks has no criminal record, no violent history. He went in, he walked around. He told me, I've done an interview with him. You can see it on my YouTube and BitChute. He said he just walked in and was walking around the place. The police were there. No one said, you can't come in here. No one said, this place is off limits. The doors were open. People were walking in and out, looking at things, picking up brochures. Okay. At some point, someone comes to him and says, you need to leave. A police officer, you need to leave. He says, okay. And he leaves. He gets arrested by the FBI, charged with trespassing, thrown in federal prison for 8 months in a hellhole of a federal prison.
Wow.
He did nothing wrong. He was this is purely punitive. It is the enemies of our republic
Yes.
punishing those of us that dare to get together, peacefully demonstrate by creating agitation, by hiring agitators and dispersing them in the crowd, attempting to coerce and entice the crowd and entrap them into committing crimes so that they could be held up. And we keep hearing this word insurrection, and that makes me livid every time they sell that lie, this insurrection, violent insurrection. It was not a damn insurrection, okay? It was a bunch of yahoos breaking windows and refusing to cooperate with police to some extent, and the vast overwhelming majority of them were paid agitators. So the entire thing was a farce, and they completely ignore. And let me show you this, if I can find this picture. I have a picture that was taken by one of the people that was there, and I'm not sure how this was taken, but this was a sort of aerial shot.
What evidence did they have against this guy that a judge could put him in prison for 8 months?
None. It was a farce. The entire trial was a complete farce. He presented the evidence. No sane, rational person could have said he was guilty of trespassing. Everything I just told you is factually correct.
I have no doubt you're correct. I was with a young man, like a 30-year-old guy in Central California, who also was at the J6 event. He also went in the building. A guard even welcomed him in, and when the guard said leave, he left. Okay. Well, he was taken into custody by the FBI and put in solitary
confinement
for 3 weeks. Okay.
Unbelievable.
Before he ever saw a judge. Okay. That, to me, that is right there. That is torture of a citizen. When he finally got to stand in front of a judge, there was no evidence. Zero. So the judge released him. Now, wait a minute. You can just pick up a citizen and put them in solitary confinement for 3 weeks? That's not okay. It's a
direct, glaring, obvious violation of the Constitution, which clearly states that you are never to be deprived of your life, liberty, or property without due process.
Yes.
So what happened to him was he was kidnapped. First of all,
by the government.
I don't use the devil's terms. I use the truth, because the truth is the sword of God. He was kidnapped, okay, and falsely imprisoned, and everyone who participated in it was guilty of acting under color of law, which is a felony. And they all need to be arrested, and they all need to be charged with these crimes and punished according to the law. And I want to see that happen.
The other story I tell about J6, since that came up, is I have a dear friend who's very wealthy. I don't want to use names, in Southern California, who also happened to be there at J6 that day, but he didn't go in the building or anything. He was just there. And he's very wealthy, and a team of lawyers came in and accused him of insurrection. And he said, show me the evidence. Well, they don't have any evidence. And he says, how can you prosecute me? And they said, well, we have a whole team of lawyers, and we can spend hundreds of millions of dollars, and you've got hundreds of millions of dollars too, but we're going to have tens of hundreds of millions of dollars, and we're going to just be able to keep pushing on you until you run out of money. So they're going to do lawfare against them as well. So they were using intimidation and lawfare. By the way, he was one of the J6ers that Trump pardoned, and Sidney Powell was working on his case as well. He didn't do anything. So they're using the legal system against us. They're using incarceration against us. The court system. We are in bad shape, my brother. And if the only way to fix that, you're not going to be able to fix it from the top down. We have to fix it from the bottom up.
Bottom up. That is exactly right. So those of you out there, I offered the last time I did a live stream, I offered to send out. I had 3 copies of this, which
can I order it online?
Not yet, but soon. But don't worry, I'll hook you up. I'll make sure you get one. It's amazing stuff. I mean, it's so well done. And Clyde Cleveland is one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. I've done podcasts with him before, and he's just an amazing patriot and a true man of God. I admire this man tremendously. And what he says in here is undeniable, hard truth, well presented. And so I actually have, Clyde found a whole bunch of these. I have a whole box of them, and I will make these available. I don't know what I'm going to charge. I'm going to just try to basically cover my cost on it. So there is a small fee, but if you want one, reach out to me out in America. Just leave me a message. I promise you I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Let me just show you this image. if I can. So we want no, that's not it. Okay, so come on, where are you? No. We want you to share and screen and let's do that. Okay, this is going to flip you out for a second, but okay, here we go. There you go. This picture shows, and the media, our mainstream media, which is entirely corrupt, or at least almost entirely corrupt, did their very, very, very best to downplay the significance of the number of people that showed up that day. And look at
That's
that
the
crowd,
Washington
folks.
Monument back there, right?
Yep.
And it's full all the way back to there.
Yeah.
That doesn't even include the reflection pool in front of the Lincoln Memorial. That's
and
huge.
It's huge. I mean, and so the estimates, the media downplayed it as best they could. They said, I think thousands, several thousand people. So this is like a million. The best estimates I've gotten are 1.5 million. I'm pretty confident that's about an accurate number. 1.5 million. Very righteously angry constitutional Americans assembled to protest what we all believe to be a flagrantly stolen election in 2016. Yeah. It is a vile, so flagrant. The cheating was so painfully obvious and flagrant and in your face. And I've called for audits for several elections, and unfortunately, my voice, I'm really kind of a nobody, so not many people listen to me. But, you know, an audit, for those of you who don't understand what that's about, because people are all about audits being bad. An audit's not bad. An audit is just, how did you get this number?
Yeah, show us how.
Where did it come from? Show us the math. Show us the data. And if you're hiding something, you would be upset about that. If you're not hiding anything, you know, when I first heard about the IRS audit thing years ago, and people always acted like it was the death of the business or the death of the person to have an audit. And I asked, well, what's an audit? Well, they just come in and they say, okay, show us the receipts. As Dan Bongino always says, show me the receipts.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you either have them or you don't. And if you don't, it means you're lying. And if you're lying, then you're guilty of fraud, and you should be punished accordingly, in my opinion. So, yeah, this was not, you know, a giant throng of lunatics who you know, showed up and rioted and pillaged and looted and burned. And it was almost entirely just constitutional Americans righteously angry at their government, demanding a redress of our grievances, which is our constitutionally protected, God-given right. So that's where I stand. Got that off my chest again. Anyway, so you are coming back to Maine September 19th, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So keep me in the loop on that, dates, times, etc., locations, and I will be sure to post that on my social media and my YouTube. And definitely we'll make it a point to get together with you when you come.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it. And when I come, I'll explain that Trump didn't win the 2024 election.
I'd love to hear that one. Truly would love to hear that one. By the way, you mentioned, I believe you. Completely believe you. You've proven to be very credible to me, Doug. So I'm pretty confident that you speak the truth, especially when I go to the people that say you're lying. And they say the stupidest, excuse my French, the stupidest shit I have ever heard in my life. Yeah. In an idiotic, childish attempt. You know, it's like covering your ears and screaming, I can't hear you, la 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 la, nah, you're dumb, you're ugly. That's a stupid tie. Like, come on, man. You know. Anyway, so
if that's the best they can do, I must be doing pretty well.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like this, am I supposed to take this seriously, CNN? I mean, no one takes you seriously anyway. Okay, we all know that you're just you're the Ministry of Propaganda, the voice of the Ministry of Propaganda.
Yes.
You know, Voldemort is your friend, a kind, caring leader. We should all do what he says and listen to him. You know, all those who decry him are evil terrorists who should be hunted down and exterminated. Yeah, the truth bears scrutiny every time. That's where I stand. Anyway, so really appreciate. We're a little over the time, but right about where I want it to be, and I'm really glad we finally got a chance to get together and show this information to everyone in Maine. And all of you out there, my viewers, I thank you for your support. And I thank you for taking the time to watch. And I assure you that we're going to be pursuing some action steps. Stick with me, Doug. I need to chat with you a little bit after the
Action
chat.
steps. Action steps.
Thank you again for joining me. I appreciate you. Maine, America, we have the ability to fix everything that's wrong in this country. I've been saying this, pounding this drum uselessly for years, but it's true. And it's all about taking control on the local level and then up to the county level, demanding accountability. Vote every time. All of you who tell me I don't vote, I really literally want to slap you. It makes me so angry that you would do that. You are responsible to do your due diligence and your duty if you want to be here and live in America. Otherwise, get out. Go to China, North Korea, and you can be a slave. You will love it there. But if you want to be an American, then you owe it to honor the Constitution and to demand accountability and transparency from our elected servants, because they're not giving it to us now, especially here in Maine. And we need to take it back. So stay tuned for some action steps and some follow-up from me. I'm also going to do a couple podcasts about the January 6th events, and I have some guests who will be coming on with me who were there that day, and they're going to tell you exactly what happened because they were there and they saw it, and the media is lying to you as usual. So stay tuned for that. Please stay tuned also for information on when Dr. Frank is going to be in Maine, and if you can make it to one of the local events, please do so. They are really empowering, and seeing the truth for yourself. Don't believe your TV. TV's lying. Put that aside. Go look for yourself, hear for yourself, make your own decisions about what makes sense and what the truth is, because the truth bears scrutiny every time. The truth is the sword of God. So that's why I love it. God bless you all, and hopefully I will see you next time. This is the Angry Citizen signing off. Have a great day, everyone.